Welcome to our second talk of Design Z-Day. Now our topic is UX Analytics, how to plan, implement, and measure a customer experience probe. Presenting to us today is Arman Arakelyan, our lead BA from our EPAM Armenia office. Before we get started, I just want to remind people to open up your Q&A chat window and be sure to post questions and vote for your favorites. And if you want to win the 1-year Balsamiq Cloud subscription for the best question, then please be sure to post not as anonymous. Okay, take us away, Arman.
Thank you, Aurelia. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining this talk. Our topic today will be hopefully building on what was already covered. This session is specifically designed to contribute to discussions on collaboration among business analysts, marketing team, and US, and UX, or how I like to call them, interaction designers. Let's see what we are going to cover in the next hour or so. I would like to ask you to all write and vote for questions and comments, which we'll discuss at the end. So first, I will do a short introduction that will include a couple of words about myself, and will introduce the subject of our discussion. An experimental term I have dubbed UX Analytics. I will also briefly present a project I led earlier that will help us better understand what UX Analytics is. Further, I will tell you how we planned the project, what we did to understand our customers, how we used in the interaction design method to gather data from customers, and how we measured the results. To conclude, we'll summarize with what I covered, and I will give you some links for further inquiry on the subject. Let's start. Okay, so my name is Arman Arakelyan, and I am a lead PA at EPAM Armenia. I thought I would briefly present my skills and expertise so that you know the background I will be bringing to this talk. My core expertise is in IT business analysis, or how we used to call it in earlier system analysis and design. I have been working in various business analysis roles since 2000. I have a Master of Science in Information Science from Simmons University, Boston, Massachusetts. I have then moved on to study and do research in interaction design at the Interaction Design Lab at Tallinn University, building on my earlier interest of human-computer interaction. My recent interests are in lean product development, information visualization, and data. In the last 6 years, I have taught at various universities in Armenia and abroad on most of these subjects. I have joined EPAM last year for a project at Chevron. So I have to say I like working at EPAM, as I especially believe in our exceptional ability to deliver complex projects in time and under budget. I have borrowed this slide on how we do it from a general presentation. And I would like to use it to tell you what I'm going to focus on and hopefully contribute with this talk. So we are going to use today, to focus today on multidisciplinary teams and the combination of business expertise with design thinking to enable business transformations for our clients. Okay, sorry about the transition. Okay. So, but how do we do it? How do we combine business expertise with design thinking? What are some of the ways we do it? I believe one of the ways we combine business expertise with design thinking is we use analytics methods, tools, and approaches to justify, inform, and measure our UX interventions, which is the exact definition of UX analytics that I would like to put forward today. We could also say this is just the use of quantitative methods in UX research, and we'd be right. However, I am arguing that the use of business analytics methods in UX interventions is specific enough to be considered a separate subset of the use of quantitative methods in UX. So again, when the business analytics methods of gathering transactional, behavioral, attitudinal, or other types of data finding insights, identifying patterns, and modeling possible future trajectories helps to justify, inform, or validate UX interventions, such as design sprints, interactive prototyping, UI design, or UX or usability studies or the like. In these specific cases, we would call this UX analytics. But why is it so important? So as designers, as UX designers, as interaction designers, we usually use tools like, we usually do qualitative research. We usually do things like usability testing. We do semi-structured qualitative interviews. We do contextual inquiry. If we're lucky, we get to do user observations. But the context in which we do it is not always very tolerant to just doing this and coming up with these studies. And you need to consider that UX is, because it's responsible for the final outcomes, it's also very much dependent and has effects on other disciplines, have effect on it, and it has effect on other disciplines such as marketing, business analysis, of course development, and of course visual design. So we have to consider the all of the setting in which we're working when we're doing our job. So, and I call it a big game where you're working for a big corporation which has different products, some of which would be core to their business, and you're entering the game as a UX designer. You need to consider some key issues. So the first one is, while everybody talks about collaboration, how it's important among marketing, UX, and analysts, few companies I've worked with, and this is just my experience, few of them have developed replicable practices for successful multifunctional project delivery. And then this is also complicated by the fact that each project is unique, so there is no one proven method to deal with all situations, right? And then again, each of the stakeholders that we viewed earlier and others we didn't have their own values, practices, and tools and approaches. And when the outcomes that they produce differ, teams with the most influence get their way. And you don't want to happen. You don't want this to happen because you want all the contributions of all the perspectives to be considered at the right time, in the right place of the project. So what I have discovered during my work as an interaction designer, because earlier I have also worked as an interaction designer, although now I'm lead business analyst at IPAM Armenia, is that data-driven studies usually work well when justifying UX studies to decision makers. And then also what's important, approaching the design process as a research project helps to create a concerted critical path that delivers results on time. So to dive deeper into how data-driven approaches can help justify, inform, and validate UX studies, let me introduce one of the projects where we have successfully used the UX analytics approach. So in this NDI protected project, I was tasked with overseeing the design of a multi-screen content delivery platform for a telecommunications provider. What actually happened is I was called by the CEO who said that the telecom provider wants to deliver their content on mobile devices, that I needed to put one of my UI UX designers in touch with the telecom company's experts, and that I was to report on this in a week. Naturally, this brief meeting raised a lot of questions in me and my teammates. So multi-device content delivery was not new to us, right? But many competitors were already doing this in other markets, but we did not know the purpose of the project, the goals of the telco provider, the target users, the priority of the features, or to start with what features we should have in the mobile app and how the app will be marketed to the intended audience. I argued, however, that we needed to know these answers to these questions even before we will start prototyping, let alone completing the designs. So, and I did really literally argue on this, because every time I brought up the need for a team effort to answer these questions, I was thrown back with a face like this one I got from the project manager. We do not have many resources, just do the design. I believe some of you must have had these experiences. For others, I really want you to go through this, because this is what we encounter every day. Like, for example, the telco experts who were supposed to know everything first told me they knew exactly what was needed and how it would work. Although after a couple of short meetings, they admitted they had not considered the questions we were asking, and these needed to be answered before the screens could be drawn. And then most of those conversations ended with the demand for the UI designs, right? So, and I knew this was a common issue, and I think in some or many organizations, this is still a common issue. You get pushed by the designs, and then when you are lucky, you get to do the research. Each changes the design altogether, each of the perspectives. So, and Gartner, for example, reported that some common risks and pitfalls in these situations include the undefined state of UX ownership, lack of collaborative sense mapping resulting in criticism or the lack of it, analytics not being readily available to the design team, planning feature deliveries without the UX professionals' inputs, resulting in the rejection of user studies, and our favorite, non-prioritized features or prioritizations based on individual preferences rather than solid data. So, and these were the same kinds of challenges we faced throughout the project, and we had to overcome it. The first one was related to management decision making, justifying user research project, which we knew we had to do, extending the initial time frame of the design, which we knew we had to do the research. And then we had the challenge of orchestrating different perspectives, understanding and aligning different roles and methods, concerting business data gathering and analysis with design. And showing the value design projects was another challenge, because we wanted to show that conducting the study, was important. So we needed to do a post-factum study to validate the results and prove for the worth of the multidisciplinary team and the extended time frame. So key aspects we covered before I begin describing our project in detail. Simply put, UX analytics, something that we covered earlier, is the use of analytics for UX design. UX analytics can help to justify, validate, and inform UX interventions. And putting multidisciplinary teams to tackle this task can be challenging, which was the case in our project. And my proposal for the first steps for the team of UX designers in this case and analysts were that UX researchers needed to understand the project purpose, users, describe the design types of insights, and the business analysts needed to investigate and report on available data and gather, analyze, and present new data. So what followed, and which we'll skip, were negotiations with different actors to implement the project like we saw it. But let's skip this part and go right to the gist. So what we did, we first had to understand what was the purpose of the study. In our case, it was introduce a mobile app to the market so that we can decrease churn rates and decrease the popularity of our plans. So now we knew what to focus on, right? So but however, we had some questions that needed to answer by UX analytics, like what was the current churn rate? Like for us, we needed to understand, could the mobile app, if introduced in one of the plans or separately, could it influence the churn rate, right? And the churn rate is the rate by which the customers leave the packages or plans they have. So and then if the mobile app would influence churn rate, then what features would be most desirable? So the methods we discussed and decided to use then were to first get a baseline on churn for segments, different segments, and then get individual lists of risk zone customers, people who the company, by those analytics they had, already knew that were going to leave. And then our plan was to survey these leaving customers to see if they would be considered to stay another month for free access to the mobile tool, which was just an MVP. And then we also had some rewards to participate in the study. And so what we were very concerned with also, which allowed us to make the choice of our main UX research tool, was that the features were given to us. So what we knew is that we didn't want the features that were given to us by the management or the marketing team. We wanted to understand what type of features the users would be interested in, would dream of having in a mobile app like this. So what we decided to do was a UX probe using the MVP, and then to gather data on this, and of course mockups, and which I'll talk to later during use. So, but then to sell this study, we also said we would validate the probe results through analytics, and then we would measure what effect this type of like the mobile app could have on churn. So our plan was to see how many stayed after the use of the app by, by just the fact that they really liked the app and they wanted to keep it. But let me try to tell you first what UX probes are. Of course, the designers in this talk would already know, but for others, probes or culture probes, it's a technique that helps to get inspirational ideas from users. So it serves as a means of gathering this data from people's lives, values, and thoughts. The probes are small packages that can include any sort of artifact. It can be a map, postcard, camera, diary. In our case, it was the MPP. And then you give users evocative tasks, which then participants use to record or tell you like some specific events, feelings, or how they would like it to happen, right? So this is the process you should go through. You prepare for the probe. You have, as we did, we developed the MVP, and then you collect the data with the probe, and you ask the participants to help you make things, which in our case was we asked them to draw the designs as they were using the app, right? And then you need to analyze and communicate data. In our project, we separated the research into two parts: preparation based on data we already had, and field research, talking to the actual customers through the probe to know more. To start with the preparatory phase, we defined the purpose of the main goals or the questions of the project. Based on the purpose and questions, we defined the baselines we would need, as well as the scope and expecting outcomes of our study, which led us to the choice of the methods and tools based on which we developed the data gathering approach and the sample size. During the preparation phase, we also decided on the team and the small budget for motivating the participants of that study. And we definitely got, and we were lucky to get the analytics data that we needed to start the probe. During the field research or the probe, we first tried out the data gathering approach. So we tried it with some possible participants, which helped us improve it and then define exactly what information we would get from it. And only then did we do the most important phase of our research, getting the information, doing the actual data gathering. Of course, for all this was we needed management approval, which we got at the end. And the roles of the different professionals here were strictly orchestrated, and each of the let's say professionals, role holders knew exactly what they needed to do and when. So the UX researchers, they needed to first they identified the main questions, answers to which were needed for the design. They conducted the design sprint. This was, something we need to do to involve the chief officers. They gathered probe results and analyzed using grounded theory. They developed a prioritized list of desirable features aligned with business expectations, and at the end, they developed in the meantime they developed several iterations of high fidelity prototypes. And so what the BAs did here was work with the telco marketing team to establish churn baselines, report on analytics we needed, and the actual list of people we wanted, which were the people who were going to leave us. Work with development team to develop the MPP and the Q&A, to develop surveys, train customer support center staff to administer them at first, and then gather and analyze MVP and other type of data to complement the probe study. And this was our critical path. And you can see in terracotta here, the BA is working, in blue here, the UX designers working, and very importantly, in lighter blue, I would say, the developers doing the key part, which was to develop the MVP that also had in itself the probe tool. So, what the business analysts did, they gathered data and then they did a survey. Based on the survey and the MVP, we could do the design probe, which the results of which were then validated by pros results. Because when we were, when we got some ideas, for example, we got in this case that video on demand was very important to, and they wanted to see this. We also validated the pros results by seeing how much video content our mobile users were using in general, and how much video on demand or what they were using on the other platforms we had, which was, for example, the home-based TV. And then, so by validating the redesign, we did the redesign, and then we measured it, and then we could present this as a solution that could be like implemented. So key enablers for the project were the MVP and Q&A tool was made possible by a brilliant engineering team. The telecom provider had a large network of local customer stores, and then we extended the design to do the research, and then the marketing team working with the business analysts provided the required analytics. So the key aspects here were that, when you're doing this, but there is always a bias towards action. As we could see earlier, I was called to the manager who said, send your UX analyst to draw the screens. So in everybody's mind then, it was clear what needed to be done. But we were, by justifying the need for understanding what people actually needed, we could remain in the realm of the UX research team doing their job. And then the UX analytics that helped us do it really depended on confirmed goals and intended outcomes, which we got from the management. And based on understanding the goals, the methods were chosen, which in our case, the main method was the probe. And so some of the key points the girls covered was the UX and UI designers. They identified the types of UX analytics outcomes needed for covering the prioritized feature list. They conducted a collaborative sense-making workshop, which was needed to get the buy-in of the key decision makers in the whole study. So we did it earlier than the probe study. The UX designers, they did the probe study and they developed high-fidelity interactive prototypes. And the business analysts have to gather together with the marketing team, analyze, and project UX analytics data. They developed and helped to administer the survey, which actually from which we actually got the information that we needed to know who exactly would be interested in the study. And then we also gathered and analyzed mobile app and other users data to complement the qualitative research we were doing. And I would like to stress here, though, this is not the only way it could be done, right? So there are many UX analytics types of studies that can be used in UX design. For example, in the service industry, some things we have seen used a lot were segmentations of the customers and gathering other data to create customer personas. Gather data not on the customer journeys that we think are happening, but the actual customer journeys that are happening, which sometimes is a different thing when you have the data itself. You gather data to understand brand awareness, measure customer attitudes through a survey towards the product you have, which we for this one we wanted to do, but we didn't have the time or the resources to do. Understand consideration and purchase strategies, follow post-purchase behavior. You could measure loyalty, and this could inform your UX study in terms of what you could do to increase the loyalty. And then you could do usability studies, of course, which some of them are UX analytics studies, I would say. For example, in my mind, the A/B studies are UX analytics studies, right? For example. Which is one of the types of studies we do. And then you could do findability and navigation studies, which is more, usability, but still using UX analytics tools. So key points I would like to stress is, although UX research is mostly qualitative, it can vastly benefit from analytics inputs. And using mixed qualitative and quantitative research methods is an orchestration arc and needs to be well planned, like we did before. And we did that. Let me go back and tell this before, that we really did something I didn't cover. We really orchestrated the probe study design. On the right, you can see analysis of churn and factors leading to it. Identification of those customers that were in the risk zone through this analytics information, contracting risk zone customers and suggesting to participate in the study. We planned all this well in advance. Participants were giving the MVP and asked to reply to a few questions on desirability, other wishes, and dreams for the app. And they actually could draw their mockups and upload it for the UX team to see it. And again, the development team helped a lot. And those who responded were followed up by the UX team to tell more and explain what they submitted. Those results, and then we validated by that data were integrated into the design of the application. We validated this information and then did the design. So it's important to really plan your qualitative and quantitative research methods, the mix of it. So in our case, the UX team used analytics both during when we were targeting the right customers and after when we were validating the results, the probe study. And again, as I mentioned, there are many other ways of doing this. And then justifications for UX studies are easier. This is important key points. This is one of the key takeaways I would like you to take, is that justifications of the UX studies is easier to sell when there is data involved. And of course, this is an oversimplification, but in my experience, when I've gone to the decision makers and said, oh, we have all this data that confirms that, this, and this, but what we don't know and need to really study through interviews is this and this and this. They've always been more prone to tell me, yeah, okay, you have 1 week to do it, or which is usually never enough, but you have this time to do it, go do it. And then although studies take a long time to plan, implement, and analyze, multidisciplinary team effort is one of the most important factors in ensuring timely delivery of outcomes. Right. So these were the key points, and then I would like to leave you with some of the links I think would be interesting for you to kind of explore to learn more about what we covered today. The first one is a very good article in Interaction Design Foundation, which is probes for context mapping. Aurelia, do we have time? Can I show a couple of these, or should we wrap up already?
Yes, nope, we're going to start Q&A in about 8 minutes, so you have a bit of time.
Okay, cool. Then let me go and show. Okay, please tell me if you're seeing this already.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so Interaction Design Foundation is a brilliant resource for all UX designers, I believe. And if you want to learn more about probes, and in this case, probes for context mapping, you can go and you'll have a lot of good content here. This is the first one. Let me tell you the second one. So importantly, a great article I found when I was doing this presentation on Nielsen and Norman Group's webpage, 5 essential analytics reports for UX strategies, right? So the link is there. Nielsen and Norman Group are the pioneers of interaction design, know a lot about this, and you can see here use of Google Analytics, but there is a lot of important content here. They actually Nielsen Norman Group. I hope this is not going to be considered advertisement because I'm not related to them anyway. But you should know that they even have a training on this, a separate training on this, analytics and user experience. And if you want to know more about this, you could gather, you could participate in it. And then, of course, a good article on, using Google Analytics for UX research. This is not, the most authoritarian, let's say, the one of the sources that I would generally recommend, but I think it's important in this talk. So, and some of what we covered also is covered in this article. Okay, so I think this is mainly it from me, and I know I went a little bit faster than I could have, but maybe, if we go through the questions, I could go back to what was covered and kind of tell you more of what we did and how we structured this.
Actually, perfect timing. Okay, so we have a few questions. One was posted even before the event started. So the question is, what are your favorite usability analytics platforms and why?
Okay, so I really believe it really depends on what you're doing, right? So, and I think there are two types of things you'd be doing to get usability or user UX analytics. The first one is when you have the app and you're integrating other tools with it to measure some of the things you're doing, to see what transitions users, for example, are making, or to do an A/B study. And in this case, I think the best tool so far is Google Analytics, or the whatever it has become recently. And then there are also tools that help you kind of do a separate UX study. And there are lots of platforms. I don't have them handy right now, but there are lots of platforms where you can put your prototype or your the things you have already developed just to test out, and you can pay for users to go and use your service and get results from them, and there are specialized platforms for these. And so if I was to answer what's my favorite tool, Google Analytics is what we have used before, and we've done it integrating with our solutions like the mobile app or other websites we've done. But if you're just starting with a mock-up or a design, there are platforms where you could use that too and get valuable insights. And I can put some, if there is a way to communicate some more information, then I could send you some of those good ones after.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, which data sources do you use in your work?
Okay, so it really depends on what project we are doing. So I've been involved in different projects. Let's focus on let's focus on what our project and what we did for our project, right? So the telecommunications provider had a lot of information in their databases that just needed to tap on, and they had employed Power BI, the Power BI on their databases, and we could get essentially anything we wanted, right? And so in this case, there were specific data sources that we needed to do the probe, which we were, we tapped into the tendency of churn, and we the marketing team with the analysts analyzed the some of the main indications that someone would leave the plan, and there we saw that people who are not using and all this, you just explore the data and you find out people who were not using for the telecommunications providers tools like the TV or the mobile so much, mobile internet so much, they were more prone to leave, right? So if someone hadn't paid for like 1 or 2 months, that was a good indication they would leave. So this is how we actually found these people, kind of saying, okay, based on this analytics information, we can know that these people are more prone to leave. Let's see if the mobile app changes anything, and let's do the study with them, not with the others, right? So and then it really depends on what you have. You could combine the data that the client already has with the data that is available in some public sources. And for example, Statista is a good place to go for some understanding some segments or some economical, let's say, tendencies, and then you combine it with the data that your client already has to come up with the information that you need to substantiate something. In our case, substantiate the, inform the UX design, or it could be to validate the UX design. So you say, I have found through our qualitative interviews, we found these things to be true. We found that people were interested in catch-up services going back and seeing only those, which was our case, only those shows that they were interested in. So it's very important to have a place where they would do the favorites and they would just see their shows, right? And you could combine it with general telecommunications industry reports, which says that this is a common trend. Right, and this combination helps you actually substantiate the final designs, because once you roll out a major design to 600,000 users, you don't want to change it. So you because of people, there's a learning curve. The people learn to use the app. You want that happening going on. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of data sources, and it sounds like it's also very dependent on what it is that the feature or the UX that you're trying to implement is supposed to achieve, right? If it's supposed to bring down churn rates, if it's supposed to keep people who are about to leave on the service, right? Okay, I think we have time for one more question before we have to wrap up. So the last question is, which of the techniques and methods in UX research is your favorite, and why? Which of them do you identify as more useful?
Okay, so I'm in interaction design. I'm a trained ethnographer. So what I have done is a lot of contextual research. For example, in Estonia, when we're developing the prototype for the digital textbook, we went on to the schools. We sat and we actually analyzed how the students and the teachers were combining traditional textbooks with digital sources and digital tables. So I would say I would have a tendency towards contextual research. So going into the context, understanding the context, and then coming up with the results. However, I've also used semi-structured interviews, which is, you know, one of the quickest ways you can gain information. And throughout my career, I've had to use different ones. So we have UX research tools. It's a lot of them. We have done we have done personas, customer journeys, etc., and all of this is important. And you need to know what the pros and cons are of each tool. And then when you're on the face of the situation that you need to deliver, you need to understand which method is the best that could be applied here to get the best results. And there are lots of places, again, Interaction Design Foundation and others, where you can go and see what each tool is good for and what the pros and cons are for each, and then you can decide.
Okay, so while you like contextual research, it really depends on the context of your project and where it is. Okay, actually, maybe Absolutely. We have one more question here, which I think is one that anybody who has been a UX designer, UX researcher would have. Have you ever had to convince a client that research is important, and how do you do it? From my previous experience, some clients are sure that they don't need to spend money in research because they know all about their users, or they already think that their idea is needed. So do you have any tips for convincing clients that research is important?
So I think I covered a couple of tips in my talk already. I also think that, okay, let me be frank here and tell you one of the techniques I have used which has worked, which might not be the most, I don't know if it's ethical or not, but it definitely works. You bring the person by your questions to a place where they cannot answer your questions. So they come up saying, we know it all, and you're saying the experts told us in this study, we know it all, we know exactly what is needed. And we were asking them questions like, so what types of things are usually people doing on mobile phones? And what do you think they should be doing on this app? And they were like, what do you think they would like to be doing? And for example, right, and other questions. And once the person understands that they do not have the answers to these questions, and that you don't have them because you're asking for the research to have these answers, and once they understand that the answers to these questions are important to move on, then the doors open for you. Of course, you have to be very careful with diplomacy, negotiations, and you have to be careful in substantiating your claims. So whenever someone is saying, how do you know, you have in your pocket or somewhere, you bring up the analytics you already have, you bring up the studies that already have. So kind of whenever people ask you, how do you know, or why we don't think that's the right thing to do, then you bring up more to substantiate your claims, and kind of you need to have it. You need to do your homework there.
Okay, great tip. I've also found that sometimes if you are having a little bit of a study, letting the client actually watch real people interact with their product to uncover problems is also a good way. Okay.
Yeah. Actually. Let me tell you, I forgot to mention, I didn't go in detail here. The fact, sorry, Aurelia, to interrupt you, but I think this would be important. The fact that we did the design sprint at the exact location where we knew there would be a general meeting on Friday, and these chief CEO, CTO, etc., these people would be there. So they would have to go through the different types of designs we already have, order that, and they would give feedback on those. We knew it would happen, and so we took this place for the design sprint. And then when the meeting happened, they had to be there, and so we stole the show, like we hijacked the meeting for 15-20 minutes for them to go through this and give the feedback on those, and that worked. So
it's a strategic location.
Yeah,
Design
sprint. So it really depends. You need to use your wits.
Yeah. Okay, so we just have 3 minutes. So I was going to ask you, can you see the Q&A, Arman? Could you pick your favorite question of the, I think we had 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I think they're all great, but you get to pick. So your favorite platforms, your data sources, which techniques are the most useful, or how to convince a client to do research. Oh, you're on mute.
It's how to convince the client to do the research. It's a very important question to ask whenever you're working in any company, and so I would go for this one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Arman. A great talk. And for the rest of the audience, the next talk is in about 7 minutes, and it's on why design ops matters. So thanks again for dialing in, and I will see you at the next meeting. Bye.
Thanks.